welcome to the Influence Hub, the education platform for influence marketing run by Tailify. Tailify is an influence marketing agency that specializes in creating category leaders through influence programs that use data and psychology at their core. The course that we're presenting today is all about understanding influence programs, how to best approach them from a strategy perspective to help you become a category leader. We're joined by Luca Tornese, who heads up our strategy team, and he is going to be taking us through, how influence programs work and how they can help you become a category leader. So, Luca, could you tell me a little bit more about your work? Where does it stem from, and why is it important?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you, Esme, for a little introduction, and very excited to get stuck into this course. Maybe a little bit more about my work. So I joined Tailify a year and a half ago, and I think we're all on this mission in trying to really build this program using data and psychology at the heart of them. And I think that is what really sets our approach apart from what you would usually see in the influencer marketing space, which is also what made me really excited about joining the mission of Tailify. But I think the main difference, and what is really interesting to really start understanding and kind of going back to the basics of what actually influence is and how it works, etc., is really understanding that brands, influencers, consumers are all part of a network. So if you think about the social graph, people are nodes connected to other nodes by links within each other, and brands, consumers, influencers, they're all part of this big ecosystem, basically. And whilst that has always been the case and that's always been true, there's been a massive shift recently in the world of media. So obviously with social media rising, these networks have become a lot more dense, which means you've been able to connect to a lot more people, whereas before you were maybe connected just to the people around you. Now you have a phone, you have a laptop, you have internet, which allows you to connect to people all around the world, making these networks a lot more complex and difficult to navigate for brands. So with every shift in the world, there's always going to be winners and losers. And you can see that a lot of brands, let's say Gymshark, Glossier, they've really understood this shift, and they've kind of took advantage of it and understood how it works. And how they've been able to do that is also an approach that we have adopted at Tailify and that we try and explain and educate all of our clients on, is really shifting this mindset from going from amplification to validation. So if you think about influencers as just an amplification of your brand message, you're actually missing the core value that they can bring to you, which is the validation of your brand message. So let me just give you an example so it becomes more clear. Let's say Nike is saying, oh, we have the best running shoes. You might trust them. You might think, okay, they're a cool brand, I might trust them, but you might not. Whereas when someone that you trust says, Nike are trustworthy, I have actually run 8 marathons. They actually have the best running shoes. Now, whenever you're exposed to Nike's message in the future, it has been pre-validated by that trustworthy source in your network. So if you start thinking about influencers as that validating power of your brand message, you're actually realizing that full potential. Then if you kind of then realize, you go back to the basics of how do we then unlock that power of influence? So first of all, you shift that mindset, but then you realize it actually is quite simple. It comes down to 2 simple things, which is 1, finding and connecting with the right influencers, and 2, making those influencers part of your network so that they continuously can validate every one of your brand messages, basically.
This sounds like what a lot of players in the space kind of want to do. How does Tailify approach the problem?
Yes. So basically, as I said, at Tailify, I think the main thing is that we really think differently. So a lot of players in the space will just, look at top level metrics. They will just think this is cool content, this will work, etc., without really going deep and understanding what makes it work. And what we've done at Tailify is we're really combining that creativity, but also investing heavily in data science and technology. So by using the power of AI, we have a team of people who are really, really literate in data and building those products, which help us look at influence through a data and psychology lens. What we also do is then we think systematically and we turn influence into a science. That means we approach it from a very experimental perspective. We always try and innovate. We try new things. We then try and validate the new things that we bring to the industry, which means we're paving the way for how things are done. And I'll obviously go a bit more into detail about that. But what we technically do and how I think we approach it differently is that we really look at compounding value over time. And that comes down to the data and technology I was talking about, which means we're always trying to collect learnings and data from every one of our campaign, which we can then implement into the next cycles, which means we get more accurate every time at selecting the right influencers, as coming up with the right campaign to deliver on the right objectives. Which means if you think a little bit about our programs, you can think of them as a rolling snowball, which means at every turn, it has a bit more snow, it goes a bit more faster, and you basically get a bigger snowball every time.
Nice. So this is part 1 of a 4-part series. What can we expect to learn in the next 3 parts?
So I'll basically take you through that snowball and how we kind of build it and how we make it roll faster and faster and faster. So we'll deep dive into our approach. At Tailify, we have engineered a 3-step approach. So we start by calibrating, where we define success and define what you want to do, basically what hill you want your snowball to roll down. Then we go into the scaling phase, which is basically how we get that snowball to keep growing and growing and growing. And then basically the last phase is what we call the prosperous phase, which is where you become a category leader as a brand. So I'll take you through these 3 phases in detail and tell you what is part of each of them.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you, Luca. And if you're watching this video, please make sure that you go and check out part 2 now.
So it's, if you ask me, a very genius little piece of technology, which basically then means we get a big short list of influencers that could potentially be successful